So after Queensby Promotions announced that they signed Moses Itauma, they put this post up on their Instagram page. And look who we have in the comments. None other than Lawrence Okolie, who said, "I still tell the story. A 15-year-old gave me the 3 toughest spars of my life." Now, again, after the most recent video I did about Itauma, there are still people who are dismissive and they're saying this is nothing special what Itauma has done at 15, going in there and sparring Okolie and Joyce and all these guys and AJ, and they're saying it's probably overblown and that Itauma was just in there being moved around by these world champions and top fighters. It wasn't really full contact sparring with a 15-year-old boy. But that's not what the guys are saying themselves. That's not what Lawrence Okolie has said. That's not what Joe Joyce has apparently said. And that was from Umar on AFL TV. He, in an interview with Frank Warren, said that Joe Joyce mentioned these spars with Moses Itauma and said that they were some of the toughest of his life. And as I said originally, you don't bring in a 15-year-old boy to spar world champions and top contenders unless he is extremely special. It just doesn't happen. I don't know why people are finding this so difficult to get their heads around. You don't bring in a 15-year-old boy to spar world champions unless he is extremely special. And this is not the 1980s or the 1990s when you don't really get that much by way of footage when it comes to amateur boxing. No, there's loads of Moses Itauma fights on YouTube. Go watch him for yourselves. This guy is clearly I was going to say a child prodigy. He's a man now at 18. But he was clearly a child prodigy in a boxing sense, right? There are different kinds of prodigy, but in boxing, he was clearly a child prodigy. Does this guarantee that he's going to go on to not only break Mike Tyson's record, but become a world champion? Of course it doesn't guarantee that. There are lots of fighters who showed promise in the amateurs, but they couldn't translate that early promise to the pros. And there have been fighters, of course, who became world champions very young, but fell by the wayside. The best example being Wilfred Benitez, who, to my knowledge, still holds the record of being the youngest world champion in history, in any weight, at the age of just 17. Now that really is crazy. So will Itauma end up being like a Benitez type guy, where he comes onto the scene as a pro, has some early success, but then kind of falls by the wayside quite quickly? And you could even, to a lesser extent, apply that to Mike Tyson. Tyson obviously had some success in his late 20s after he came out of prison. He did become world champion again, but his prime years were really in his early 20s. Once he got out of his early 20s, he was still a very dangerous fighter and a good fighter, but he didn't have, at least not, this is the perception most people have, right? He didn't have the same spark, the same kind of energy, the same enthusiasm for boxing once he reached his mid to late 20s. Some guys, they just burn out early and there's nothing you can do about it. Personally, I don't think it would have made any difference or much difference. Let me just rewind and remix it for a second. I don't think it would have made much difference to Mike Tyson's career if Cuss hadn't died and he hadn't fired Kevin Rooney. I still think Mike Tyson would have lost. I just think that, he was, as other people have described him, a flame that burned very hot and very bright for a short amount of time. Whereas other people, like Lennox Lewis, for example, had a flame that never burned as brightly or as hot as Mike Tyson at his peak, but it burned for longer. You see? Mike Tyson had like a short fuse, burned bright, short, big explosion, but then it was over. So some fighters are like that. Will Moses Itauma be like that? Remains to be seen. But what I can tell you is that there are Mike Tyson fans right now, upon hearing about Itauma, and certainly after watching a few of his fights, who, and I'm talking about grown men here, some of them middle-aged grown men, getting down on their knees before bed at night, praying to God that Moses Atuma doesn't break Mike Tyson's record. I'm serious. Over a decade I've been on YouTube. I know how fanboys think. I know how pathetic they are. And there will be Mike Tyson fans on their knees before bed praying to God that Atuma doesn't break Mike Tyson's record. That's how emotionally invested these people are in fighters who don't know them, who they've never met, who don't even care about their existence. You know, for me, I watch boxing for entertainment. I love the sport, and I want to see what people can do, and I can admire a fighter's ability, but that's where it stops. I don't go down the road of deifying the guy and making him out to be some kind of god or something. It's weird to me when I see, grown men doing that to other men. Very, very weird. But this is what they're like. And again, over a decade on YouTube, I know how they think. And trust me when I tell you this, they will be on their knees praying that Moses Atuma don't break Mike Tyson's record. And all I can say is chill, bro, because not only would he have to beat the right people to get a version of the world title, but he'd have to be maneuvered into that position. And that's probably going to be the most difficult thing, maneuvering him into that position, dealing with all the boxing politics and what have you, to get him the opportunity in the first place. So if you're a betting man, you'd probably say the odds are against it. So relax, all you Mike Tyson fanatics. It's not time to bite your fingernails off just yet. Anyway, just thought I'd talk about that. Moses Atuma, Lawrence Okolie saying that Atuma gave him the 3 toughest spars of his life when Atuma was just 15. So let me know what you think about it, people. And by the way, when it comes to Lawrence Okolie, I've heard Eddie Hearn suggest or infer that the legal situation is still unresolved with Okolie, but Okolie is apparently pressing ahead and fighting on Ben Shalom's Sky Show anyway. So we'll see what happens there. But moving forward from that, of course, I'd like to see Okolie fight Jay Opataya to unify at cruiserweight. And you've obviously got Ilunga Makabu as well. If he manages to do that, or even if he doesn't, at heavyweight, a good fight for him would be, well, I'll discuss that in another video. Let me know what you guys think about this video in the comment section below.